Tonight on TNA Lockdown, AJ Styles defends his World Heavyweight title against the Pope. We have the Lethal Lockdown match, aka War Games. We're going to see Team Hogan and Team Flair. Who gets the win? Do we see any swerves, any turns? And Kurt Angle and Mr. Anderson have possibly the best TNA match so far this year. Right now, it's your TNA Lockdown pay-per-view review from Big Al and the Kick-Ass Wrestling Show. Tonight, the big TNA Lockdown pay-per-view. How was it? We're going to go over every match, give them a star rating, and give this entire show a grade. So let's find out. Let's go over the matches. Let's see who won, and let's analyze what happened tonight at TNA Lockdown. The first match of the night was Rob Van Dam taking on James Storm. The winner of this match would get the advantage for their team in the Lethal Lockdown match. If you're not familiar with Lethal Lockdown, it's a lot like War Games, pretty much the same exact concept. So, RVD gets the win against James Storm in a pretty good match. I'd give this match 2 stars, relatively quick. They got the show on the road, but RVD's a great wrestler, and so is James Storm. I wouldn't call James Storm a great wrestler, but he's good. So this was an okay match. 2 stars, I'm going to give it. Rob Van Dam gets the victory and the advantage for Team Hogan. Right after that, we had Homicide taking on Kendrick, taking on both members of the Motor City Machine Guns in basically a 4-way match. And the winner of this would take Doug Williams' spot in the X Division title match later on. What happened, Doug Williams, with everything that's going on with the quakes over in, the volcanoes over in Europe, he's stuck in the UK. He's not going to get back in time. So we had a substitution. Winner of this match ends up being Homicide. So Homicide escapes the cage. We're going to see him later on replacing Doug Williams in the X Division title match. This match, again, was pretty good. It was okay. X Division guys, I give it 2.5 stars. 2.5 stars. Let's go with 2.5 stars for that match. Barely. Again, nothing too special, really, so far on the TNA pay-per-view. And it stayed that way for a little while. The next match, Kevin Nash took on Eric Young. This wasn't an awful match for Kevin Nash, considering his age, considering, he's gotten up there. But he put on a pretty good show. He did a decent job. He sold the moves, and he got the victory. I wasn't too upset to see him get the victory. I know a lot of you will probably disagree with that because Eric Young is younger and such, but I don't know if I see very much with Eric Young. So I'm okay with Nash getting the win. I wish they would, maybe build him up a little more so when he does do the job for one of these other guys, it means something. Anyway, we find out that Nash is going to be replacing X-Pac, whatever you want to call him, later in the match, later in the card with Scott Hall against 3D. The reason for this, apparently Sean Waltman, X-Pac, did not show up on time. He needed to be there in St. Louis at the arena by 1, and he was not there. So they had to replace him. Hall did show up. So we did have that match. So Nash, another replacement. And you could see a lot of these matches were not built up. There was nothing really behind them. The Homicide, Kendrick, Motor City Machine Guns was thrown together. Yesterday, Dixie Carter had advertised on her Twitter it was going to be a tag match. So, I understand they had to improv there, but it wasn't hyped either way, is what I'm getting at. Kevin Nash, like I said, decent match with Eric Young. Then we had the Knockouts division, the tag titles and the Knockouts title on the line when the Beautiful People took on Tara and Angelina Love, and I couldn't care less, so I'm not even going to rate that because the Knockouts division is such a joke these days. But Madison Rayne now is the TNA Knockouts champion, and the Beautiful People are still the tag team champions, if you care. That's what's going on in the Knockouts division, which I don't think anyone really cares about it. Frankie Kazarian is the new X Division champion. He won a pretty good match against Shannon Moore and Homicide. Again, kind of strange that they took Doug Williams' title away from him just because he couldn't make it back. I'm sure we're going to hear from Doug Williams maybe tomorrow on Impact. He can't be too happy, right, about losing that X Division title. But this was a pretty good match. Again, not too much build-up. We were ready for the Kazarian-Moore Williams match, even though that was barely built up as well. So hopefully they start putting a little bit getting behind the X Division, because Kazarian is a phenomenal X Division wrestler. He would make a great X Division champion. Are they going to let him actually do that? Or are they going to give it back to Williams and go a little bit more with, Williams' these X Division guys are a bunch of acrobats thing? We'll see where they go with it. Team 3D versus Hall and Nash, 1.5 stars. It was good to see Hall and Nash back together, but that's about the only good thing that came of that match. Team 3D gets the victory. Then, finally, we have something that we can really sink our teeth into and talk about. Kurt Angle and Mr. Anderson had not only the match of the night, this might have been the best match that we've seen on TNA television, or TNA in general, all year. This was phenomenal, and I'll tell you something, you gotta YouTube this. Kurt Angle did a moonsault off the top of the cage. Unbelievable on top of Mr. Anderson. Awesome move. I can't believe Kurt took that bump. He is a warrior, and he's hurt. He's banged up, and he's taking those types of bumps and doing those kinds of things. He is a trooper, and his, little program there with Mr. Anderson was quality. I got on it a little bit, but I'll say this, that's the one thing TNA was consistent with. They actually built around, just a good old wrestling feud. Mr. Anderson, Kurt Angle, slowly they had problems. Their problems got worse and worse. They had some matches, went back and forth. Kurt Angle chokes him out inside the cage with the metal that was, the big issue in the storyline. And that's it. Spits on him and takes off. And then, I can't say enough. That was a 4-star match. That was an awesome match. Great moonsault. But then at the end, Kurt Angle just picks up the mic and tells everyone, I'll be gone for a month. When I come back, I'm going to be going for the title. Is that the best they could think of? Again, with Mr. Angle. With Kurt Angle, I wish TNA wasn't so lazy with their booking, because they really, really are. And the storylines here, there's nothing on them. But this was a great match. This was by far the highlight of the show. So Lockdown for me was all about Anderson Angle and that 4-star match. For me, that moves the grade up dramatically, because up to this point, I was not happy at all with this pay-per-view. After that, we had the big World Heavyweight title match, AJ Styles versus the Pope, and it didn't disappoint. It was a great, great match. The ending was a little controversial. Some people might not like it. AJ Styles reached and pulled a pen out of a cameraman's, his pocket, and stabbed the Pope in the eye with it. He then did the Styles Clash and got the victory. AJ Styles, still the TNA champion. So, he pulled the pen out of the cameraman's shirt. Heels do what they can to win. It's not like we had a run in there. I know sometimes you want to see AJ get the clean victories, but that's just because they've done such a poor job with him up to this point. A one-time thing, he cheating to win, that's okay. So I'm not upset about that, and it was a great match. I did, however, want to see the Pope get the win. I'm not sure that AJ Styles is the champion for TNA right now to really take them to the next level. I don't know if the Pope is either, but I was willing to at least give that a shot. I don't know. I don't think it is Styles. We'll find out, because Styles keeps the title, and he'll continue being the champion. Hopefully they at least get behind him then, and they build up, let him get some victories. Build him up and let him get some victories. He's lost way too much for a wrestler with the title. That leads us to the big main event, Lethal Lockdown, basically a War Games style match, Team Hogan versus Team Flair. They go at it for a little while. Jeff Hardy was laid out backstage by Sting. He made a dramatic entrance at the end when Team Flair had a big, big advantage. He went on up top with beer money and flew off a ladder on top of the cage onto a table. Not on the ground, but still on top of the cage. It was pretty good. It wasn't bad. Not a huge bump, but it was nice to see. Pretty creative. So that was a good part of the show. Really nothing big, which was the shocker here for this main event. We expected a swerve. I expected something big to go down. Hogan and Flair on the same team. Bischoff. We didn't hardly see really anything. We did find out one thing. Flair came out. He was trying to get the ring off of Abyss's hand. Hogan comes out, beats the hell out of Flair. Flair's bleeding. Flair loves to bleed these days, doesn't he? And Flair also fell on some tacks, so that was funny to see. Bischoff came out, acted like he was going to break him up, and then he threw his brass knuckles to Hulk Hogan. So I guess that's showing us that Bischoff and Hogan are still on the same page, that Bischoff is a face. I guess that was the big turn or the swerve. It's not like they advertised a turn, but I thought it was coming here. Overall, there was a phenomenal match that was, I don't want to say worth the price of the pay-per-view alone, but damn near $35. Kurt Angle and Mr. Anderson put on a hell of a show, and Kurt Angle's moonsault, you gotta YouTube it, you gotta look it up, phenomenal. So that was an awesome match. AJ Styles and Pope had a great match, and the Lethal Lockdown match was okay. The rest of the card, I could have thrown it away. I could have done without it. And a lot of just bad booking leading up to this pay-per-view, so it made a lot of the matches less dramatic. I will say this, the crowd in St. Louis was awesome. They were excited, they were hyped, they were into all the matches for the most part. Kudos to that crowd, and TNA, please, get the hell out of Orlando more. I'm going to go ahead and give this TNA Impact a C+. I'm Big Al, this has been your TNA Lockdown review.